Hello and welcome to Rebuild with PG, where we talk about all the industry aspects here of concrete restoration in South Florida. My name is Raphael. With us today, we have a guest. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Deanna Thompson. I work for Whitecap. We are a supplier. I happen to specialize in restoration and waterproofing products.
So, Deanna, I'd like to ask you. You say you work with Whitecap, but what exactly is your role at the company, and what does your company do as distributors for our industry?
Well, my job title is account manager. So I have several accounts. Probably 90% of them are restoration waterproofing contractors. And I help assist the contractors with their material. I also do submittals and pricing and also go out on the job sites, meet with the contractors and engineers to identify right products for the job and per the application. Yeah, that's really kind of it in a nutshell.
As distributors, how does Whitecap work along with construction companies?
Well, I'm gonna say probably I'm gonna go back just a little ways. I started working for Whitecap probably about 12 years ago. I think it's been about 12 years now. It was one of those things where Whitecap saw opportunity in restoration. They kind of seen that business coming down the road. At the time, we were kind of limited with the supplies that we offered, and also even the contractors that we did business with, because we're started out as basically a Division 3 supplier, which is concrete accessories and all that stuff. So because they saw the opportunity, they invested, time and people into, the restoration side of things. And we aligned ourselves with a couple, good sized manufacturers and kind of started out kind of there. And we built the business over the years. So, at this point, we basically have um, we have supplies. We supply just about every brand that's out there, and really can take care of just about everything from, like I said, waterproofing, joint accessories, sealants, and things like that.
Okay. So, as we know, you're not the only distributor in South
No,
Florida,
no,
not for concrete restoration, not for
correct.
materials. So, what would you say kind of sets you guys apart from other distributors in the area?
I would probably say the people. Honestly, I think the people that are in place, and I think I kind of covered that a little bit before. Like I said, when Whitecap decided to kind of go this direction into restoration, it was very important that they brought people on that were knowledgeable, that some of them even brought their own book of business to the table. And I think that kind of what sets us apart is that, our knowledge, our service to our customer. And I think that's anything, though, any business. I think that that's what, kind of sets you aside from your competition.
Yeah. How many different ways can you really send out materials and things like that? So I guess it would be more or less the people and the service, the quality of service.
Quality
Kind
of
of reminds me of
service.
almost like a restaurant. Like how many different types of restaurants can you really go to? It's more about what the service that you get there at.
Correct. I think so. And like I said, I think that's what kind of makes a distinction or that separates, basically, us from other competitors,
Right.
suppliers.
Well, I'm sure you're familiar with it. Down here in Florida, we have some extreme weather, right? We
We
have
do.
hurricanes, gale force winds, we have salt in the air since most of the properties are by the coast. Um, how does your role as a distributor ensure that the proper materials are being applied to the job sites? Materials that withstand the pressures or the chemicals within the air themselves.
So, I mean, ultimately, it's really not my decision. So, what I do is I have resources. My resources are my manufacturers. They have people, reps that's what they do. They specify materials. They work closely with engineers on a regular basis. And a lot of times, as you know, a lot of times these jobs already set up with the supplies that they're going to need, as far as identifying the supplies that they're going to need, depending on the scope of work. So once I get involved and I become aware of a project, obviously it's about putting together the products that will be needed, pricing, how we're going to get it from point A to point B, basically delivery, making sure that we have the supply that we're going to need to keep the customer or the contractor, serviced and going on the job and meeting their meeting their timelines. And then when it comes to a lot of the technical stuff, I will work side by side with a manufacturer's rep, and they're the ones that are actually going to dictate what those products will be. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are warranting the products.
Of
And so
course.
it's one of those things that would be stepping kind of outside of my boundaries as a distributor because I don't want to accidentally, um, recommend something that's not, the right product. So that's the reason I work closely with my manufacturers.
Yeah, no, warranties are a big thing in our field. Usually, especially when it comes to anything on the waterproofing, anywhere between 10, 15, 20-year warranties. So I know
Hmm.
they expect they're very stringent on what primer you can use, what substrate temperature works for
What kind of
humidity.
prep you need to do
Yeah.
prior to that. But we're very, very lucky down in Southeast Florida because it is such a hot spot for restoration. We have a lot of manufacturers reps down here who have been in the industry for a long time. They know what they're doing. And, I'm confident and feel proud of what we do, that we're doing the right thing and we're restoring these buildings correctly.
Well, everyone here within the industry faces their own challenges, right? Us with either the job, sometimes there's even material shortages, and you're the distributor, you're not the manufacturer, so you don't make the material, you just stock it. So, what kind of challenges do you as a company face when it comes to acquiring the materials that can then be distributed across your different clients?
Obviously, it's one of those things where it differs, from year to year. You'll run into where you have raw material shortages, which, obviously we have no control over that. It really is kind of more of a global thing because a lot of these products their raw materials are made elsewhere. Manufacturers have to rely on these things to be shipped from other countries and available in other countries. So a lot of times you'll find that you'll have certain products that there's a shortage on raw materials.
Hmm.
And of course, it's one of those things where, ultimately what it does is it affects us down the line. A lot of times, not being able to get the supply or affects us price wise too, where they'll have to raise things.
Hmm.
So, those are things that we're constantly kind of coming across and having to, work our way through. Like I said, I kind of go back to it's kind of the same way in most industries when you're talking about supply or materials and stuff like that, where you're relying on other raw materials to make the end product.
So, what are some of the things that you guys do to, I guess, navigate around those difficulties when it comes to availability, shortages? What are some things that you may do preemptively or proactively to, I guess, mitigate that, with whatever knowledge you may have? Because you may see some shortages coming through your
Sure.
way. Do you hear anything along the grapevine? What does Whitecap
Well, a
do?
lot of times what we'll do is, we'll go to another manufacturer. We'll find the same product that is made by a different brand, right? So a lot of times that's going to be kind of the easiest way to, take care of an issue of a shortage. If we also, other things that we do, if we see shortages coming up, then that's also working very closely with our manufacturers. Then what we'll do is we'll bring enough supply in and we'll warehouse it as long as it's not those materials that are going to expire because we
Of
do
course.
we do work with a lot of materials that have shelf lives that are only maybe anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. And so we have to take that into consideration too. But, it just depends. Like I said, if it's something that we can bring in enough to say, I know that I have jobs that are going to use X number of units of this, then we'll bring it in and we'll just keep it in for our customers. And sometimes you just, there's nothing you can really do. Sometimes you don't have that information. Unfortunately, if we can't switch it out, if it's something that we haven't been able to plan for, a lot of times we'll have to wait. So,
I've always been curious as to this is a personal question of mine, but
mhm,
who and how do you determine what materials you should stock up on, on a regular basis? So we're not alluding to any shortages or anything like that. So is there some kind of formula, or do you just take a look at like past couple years of data of what's been sold the most and have kind of, because you have limited space, your
mhm.
warehouse.
Sure.
So you have to have some kind of percentage of this type of good versus this good, even though they may be in the same category, such as bagged goods or concrete. So how do you determine that?
Well, we have buyers, and run reports that will give them the information about those things and we also put everything in categories or divisions,
Mm,
and so they can narrow it down, focus in on say one category, whether that be division 3 or division 7. They can narrow it down and then look at those products and see how often they're sold. So they'll base their buying and a lot of their buying on those reports. From my standpoint, mine's all based on basically, jobs that I have coming up. In the restoration world, it's one of those things where most of the times you're going to take it out, you're going to replace rebar that needs to be done. You're really kind of talking about only maybe 10 products. And it's kind of the same thing over and over and over again.
right.
Repair mortars, and epoxies, and stuff
Yeah.
like
The
that.
base
So the
products that we
base
use
products,
everywhere. Right.
exactly. So, it's one of those things where there's typically not a job that's going to, be out in left field with a product that, you don't typically have sitting in the warehouse.
Okay.
So,
So in the past, in this show, we've spoken about, we've tried to help our viewers understand what should they consider when it comes to choosing a general contractor,
mhm,
right? Because there are certain companies that you may need for certain types of products. I've spoken before that the word general contractor is very general. It's a certificate that can do many different things, and like we're specialized in concrete restoration. I've mentioned before that if you were to give me a new construction job, make a skyscraper, I really wouldn't know what to
right,
do. That's not
right.
my field.
No, it's not
Right,
your
same thing.
forte.
You give somebody that's been doing or new construction for their whole life into a concrete restoration job, and we've seen that before with the engineers, where engineers come from that field of new construction into
Hmm.
concrete restoration, and they're really throwing everything out of whack because they don't know the processes, they don't know the standard procedures for how it really goes. So, what kind of advice can you offer to viewers and listeners when it comes to choosing a distributor? What should you look for? Because they may be job dependent,
Right.
right? So, what kind of things should you look for when you're choosing? Okay, who am I going to pick for this job?
Like you said, it's one of those things where you've got different distribution centers, so let's speaking specifically about Southeast Florida,
Hmm.
that as a whole, I mean, obviously it's on us to kind of educate the public about it, but we do that through our associations. We do that through um, HOA, trade shows. And, it's one of those things where there are certain distributors in the area. We're not the only ones. We have competition, but we specialize in these materials. We have people in place that understand the materials. We understand the jobs and how they run and their schedules, right? And also, too, we're a wealth of information when it comes to recommending good contractors, people that have a good reputation. They know what they're doing. I'm not going to recommend a shell contractor to do restoration. I
Right,
mean,
right.
they just don't understand it because it's not what they do. Really, that's kind of how we work. And I think that it's one of those things where, go online, do your research. Like I said, there's associations that are just geared for restoration and waterproofing. Not sure if I'm allowed to mention them, but
Yeah.
ICRI is one of them. And they will provide that information to you, whether it's through their publications or picking up the phone and talking to someone. I mean, we really are about making this as professional and making sure that all of us are working together to provide a good end product and safe buildings for us to live in.
Associations do help be like a central point of information
Hmm.
for those that, and that's what we try to do here. We try to make sure people are informed, that they know the processes, they know what to expect as well. So ICRI is a good one because I think they do have certain regulations that even engineers,
They do.
they specify based on those ASTM as well. All that is specified on there. So being a distributor, usually I would assume you get kind of first look at any new materials coming out. You may get some brochures from the manufacturers, probably before a lot of us do. Are there any kind of new trends and technologies and construction technology that you're seeing that are coming through?
You know,
Anything that you can discuss? I don't know if you're like on an NDR or something.
yeah, right.
NDA, sorry.
At this time, no, really don't have anything kind of new in the pipeline. We've got products that we've been using that work. And, sometimes it's, how they say, what they say. If it isn't broke, don't fix it.
That's true.
Um, Now, it's one of those things where I think a lot of times, more often than even ourselves as distributors, I think the engineers find out more about those
Mhm.
products before anyone does. Because remember, the manufacturer's reps are working directly with the engineers.
Okay.
So they're giving those classes to them, and it's at a technical, level and explaining why they work and why they work better. And so we kind of find out about that stuff a little bit later on down the road. And we're really all about going out there and marketing it after, it's kind of been, proven.
Approved,
And
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And engineers start speccing it because, as you know, this is an engineer driven market that
Yes.
you and I work in. So we really are all looking at to the engineer to say, okay, what are we to do here and what are we supposed to use?
Well, nowadays, there's a lot of talk about the environment, climate change, and specifically sustainability, right? A lot of companies are kind of throwing out there, and they're very proud of, oh, we have a net zero carbon footprint, or we're green in this way. As a distributor, obviously you don't make the materials, so you have no say in the sustainability of materials. But
Right.
what does a distributor do, if anything? What can you do or does that play a role in the company? Sustainability, right? Does
It
that play a role with
it
you at all?
well, it's one of those things where we're about what's the demand, right? So although it's one of those things, we all want to make sure that we are, providing products that are sustainable, that have all those lead reports, everything to go with it. More and more those products are that's what's available, right? So but we, like you said, we have no control over that, right? So because if there's a demand for something, as a distributor, that's kind of what we do. We're to get it, get it to our warehouses and get it to the contractor or the customer, the end user. Again, I have to go back and I said that's all really driven by, the engineers and the architects and what they're specifying. And so as they've specified those products, right? Then obviously as distributors, those are the products that we're bringing in and supplying. And so, I
So
don't know if I answered that right,
no,
but
you mentioned before that the engineers receive the technical information on new
correct.
products before anyone do,
Hmm.
basically, because they're the ones that are going to be specing it. But do you think, in your opinion, that the engineers also have some kind of influence on the manufacturers themselves, saying, "Hey, this is the kind of stuff we need to see. This is the problems we're facing. We
I
need to
would
be able to solve like X and Y and Z because of this structural issue."
I mean, I could only imagine that that's the case. I would hope so. You know, that's what develops new products, right? And better, faster, better for the environment. So I can only hope that those are the conversations that they're having, at some point. So I don't know that for because I'm not part of that, part of that process. So, but
Right.
like I said, it makes sense that that's probably something that happens. Hey, we need this. This is a problem we're trying to solve. Can we come up with something?
Yeah. So being South Florida being such a large market for
Hmm.
restoration, and you go anywhere, you see cranes up or you see people doing restoration, either new buildings in Miami, especially a lot,
Hmm.
or just restoring anything around here. We have a lot of distributors here. We have a lot of concrete restoration companies here. We have a lot of different manufacturers that either have some kind of manufacturing plant here or sell here heavily. But what would you say, I guess, as a distributor?
Hmm.
How is your role essential? Like, what do you bring? How's your role essential in the concrete restoration process? Let's take Sika or whoever, any other manufacturer, the large man. Why don't they just sell direct?
Oh, well, because distribution deals with many contractors, okay?
Mm,
Manufacturers want to concentrate and focus in on manufacturing their product. And then they also have to go and they have to find a place for that product to be or sit on the floor
Right.
and then be turned around and be delivered. Obviously it is impossible for them to do that at this point, although things are changing as far as the way we get our supplies and goods. Right, distribution is still very important, because otherwise the end user would probably never get the product or know about the product. We're kind of the marketing arm for them. Like I said, we're the ones that move it up and down the road. We're the ones that put it in the warehouses and make it available because they need it. So that's where distribution comes in.
So it sounds like if it's just too much, too many wheels, too many different parts
Too many
for the
moving parts. It
manufacturer. So
is.
either the
Yeah.
quality would go down because now they can't just focus on manufacturing, or you have lead times, deliveries will be slow because they have to focus on that as well. So yeah, I guess it does help. It does help them be more specialized in, let's make this product, let's make it right, let's make sure it fits within this market,
Mhm.
and then because they can rely on you to store it, to market it, and to ship it out while
Correct.
they focus on the formulas, the chemistry behind it.
Correct.
And all right.
Yeah. Yeah, and also too, the other thing, which is another thing that's really big, is that distribution offers credit to customers.
Right,
So that is something that manufacturers, they're not in that business at all.
right.
They want to have, five, I'm just using this as an example. They want to have five customers. They don't want to have 500.
Mm,
So, now all of a sudden they only have to collect money from five customers versus 500. And there's
right.
a lot more involved in doing that. So you have credit departments and, like my company, we have different departments that focus in on those areas of distribution.
So with your company's credit departments, are most of your clients on, like a credit schedule like we are, for example,
Mhm.
we have a usually net 30 or a set amount of time once we receive an invoice to pay that back. So
Correct.
is that what most of your clients do, or do you have certain people who are just right at the counter paying card or cash immediately?
I would say probably I would say probably 90% of our business, our customers have credit terms.
Okay.
So, and then, you have, I would say maybe some of your smaller contractors or whatever that just want to pay along the way, have COD accounts.
Yeah. And then yeah, you said you have your 500 customers. Not That's not what manufacturers want to deal
Is
with.
that what
They want
manufacturers?
they want the five, a couple distributors here and there.
Exactly.
That's about it. No,
Exactly.
they don't have to
Exactly.
deal with Joe Schmo
Why
and
didn't you pay me this week?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
They're
So,
too busy. They're
yeah.
too busy with all the
Yeah,
chemistry. I can
focusing
imagine.
on what they need to be focused
Yeah.
in on,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I
And that's,
mean,
developing products and making sure that, like you said, the products are good and the formulas are great and, and consistent. That's the other thing too.
right. Yeah. Because it would we've had issues before, usually with coloring where it's like one batch is completely different than the other. That happens a lot. I've seen that happen in, for example, glass manufacturing,
Mm-hmm.
where we have replaced glass on certain windows before, and in the order it's the same exact tint, but side by side, different batches, you see slight differences.
Slight difference. And
Paints the same
paints the
way,
same way.
big issue there. Like
Yeah.
the formula could be the exact same, and then sometimes it's just something with that different batch, whatever it was, and it comes
Yeah, and
out.
I think that's something we've all learned. You've learned as a contractor, I've learned as a distributor. It's one of those things whenever you're dealing with anything that has color in it,
Mm-hmm.
you want to buy one lot. That's how they
Right.
put it, right? All at one time. Ideally, it doesn't always work out that way, but especially if you're putting something side by
Oh
side,
yeah, yeah, 100%.
So, it's not a perfect science. It really isn't. For whatever reason, it's not. So,
I can only imagine that, it's like, for example, there's a lot of manufacturers here that sell all around the country,
right.
right? And there's so many different just environmental factors, and especially in the United States being such a large area of land. I mean, constructing something or building a house in Colorado where you have snow all the time. I've been to Colorado a few times, and most of the houses have, the very steep slopes
Mm-hmm.
to keep the snow off of it. But
Correct.
the materials here, the ones we get, I've seen the data sheets, like, oh, if it doesn't work below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So there's got to be a lot of different formulas for a
Oh,
lot of
there
different
is for
locations.
sure, depending on the products. I mean, they'll even switch it from winter product to a summer product, and they
Oh,
completely change the
even
formulas.
in the same state.
Even in the same state, even
Wow.
down here, like we have products. I don't know if you know this or not. The 72745 traffic system
Right.
that Sika
Yes,
has. They have a summer grade
they do?
They
I
do.
did not
And
know that.
that's what the SG is. It's a summer grade.
Mm.
So, they have to change the formula slightly because otherwise, that's a fast setting product anyway, or fast curing product.
But in the
But in
summer,
the summer,
oh my
it's
God.
like,
Yeah. You lay
you
down,
open it up and it's like,
it's
oh.
already rubber. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, but that doesn't affect the formula long term?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. It's just for like how quickly it cures.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And like I said, I'm not the scientist, but they've figured it out. And I've noticed that with just, being in the industry for so long and selling so many different products, I just noticed that they do that with glues and everything else that they use to say
Yeah.
adhere things to expanded, metal, stuff like that. They change the glue in the
Oh, of
summertime.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. So
It's well, material science is a very interesting field. I can't wrap my head around it. Just having to keep that in mind that your aluminum or iron expands at different rates, and then you have some structure that's made out of both.
right.
Either steel and aluminum all together. So whatever materials go on it, whether it's the coating for the rebar, even the cement itself, has
Sure.
to be some kind of property that allows it to kind of move along with the rebar, else it'd just be cracking all the time. Especially if you have post tension cables.
Yes, you're correct
Uh,
on that. So
Thank you very much, Deanna,
hey,
for
thank
being here.
you.
We appreciate your time. And again, join us next time. This is Rebuilder PG. Have a wonderful day.